Today's topic, I wanted to cover AzerothCore. For the last couple of years, I've sort of dabbled on and off in trying to get it working, keeping it up to date, and there's been a few community driven projects that I've looked at, mainly Nerve. And even though the simplicity of instructions is quite clear, I still see that people have a lot of issues. Over the last week to 10 days, I've been sort of playing around with trying to automate a lot of the heavy lifting on the installs. I think I've pretty much got it there now. I've actually done two versions. I've done one for a Debian system running on my Unraid server, and the second one, which I got working yesterday, was basically on WSL locally rather than trying to install VirtualBox or you know VMware Workstation or something like that. And honestly, I was up and running in just over 10 minutes, and it was very, very quick and simple. But anyway, the script sort of is fairly automated. I have put a lot of effort into making it as simple as possible for the end user. Very little copy and paste, very little to miss copy and paste or get wrong, or really make it simple all round. It does something that I've not seen done before, and I was really trying to have an install that I could use over and over again, in case things broke or. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. Well, other people might want this simplicity in their lives. I ask a couple of questions at the beginning of the script, which is, where do you want to start in the expansion, and how many player bots you want to roam around, and whether you want them to log in with you or whether you want them to always be logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the setup process. This is running on Debian 13, very clean install. As you can see, I'm running 12 gigs of RAM with 14 CPU threads. I'm only running that many threads for the actual sort of compiling itself. You don't need this many to run. In fact, part of the reason this script existed was I've got a 10-year-old dual core, Celeron 2.4 gigahertz with 4 gig of RAM, sorry, 8 gig of RAM. And although it did take 4.5 hours to compile, it worked flawlessly and it runs 350 bots, no problem. So let me go ahead and quickly run through the install, and I'll be back with you in a moment. So this is the first place where you'll need to make some decisions. We definitely do not want a desktop environment, but we do want an SSH server. We can leave system utilities alone and continue. Now we've reached the end of the installation. For unrated specifically, I actually need to sort of press continue here, let it run its cleanup. Once it goes for the system reboot request, I get out of there, I force stop my VM, I go and edit the VM, I then scroll down, I remove the ISO and I switch this back to the first boot order, which is the primary virtual disk. I update, and then I let it boot up back with a VNC console. This should be the last time we come into this console. We'll do everything over in the PowerShell window. Now we're at the logon screen. Log in with the user that you created. And then before we continue, I just wanted to show you, I should have probably done that at the beginning, there is an actual guide that I created for us to follow through. So we've done the base OS installation. I wasn't really going to sort of, you can install this as a virtual machine however you wish. If you want to do it solo on your machine, or if you want to do it on other NASes or hypervisors or things like that, that's up to you. The only prerequisite is that you need Debian 13. It's very lightweight, gets the job done, and this script is built for it. So once we've installed the OS, we need to do the initial login and enable SSH root access. So once we have logged in, we're going to switch user to the root. And we already set the root password earlier on in the installation. I'm going to get the IP address just for reference. And then I'm going to log in on this side to that box as the standard user that we created. So I'm going to SSH 127. I'm going to accept its fingerprint and log in with the password. We are done with this screen. Now we need to enable root login. So we'll go back over to our PowerShell window and we will switch to the root user. Once we're logged in as a root user, we can copy this command. We can exit from there and we can exit again. Now we can log in with the root account. Fingers crossed. It lets us in. Let's clear the screen. So one of the important things to do is configure a static IP address, because you could leave it as DHCP, but there's a good chance that you're going to get a new IP address at some stage in the near future, and you'll have to re-input that back into the SQL database to get it so that you can connect to the services you need. So what we need to do is edit our network interfaces and statically set an IP address. So if you grab this handy one-liner and then paste it over here, it should export you some settings that you've already got in place. Like, it will already pick out your network interface name, and if you wanted to leave it as 127, you could do. I'm going to change mine, but I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm then going to open my network interface card. Network interface, it's not card, sorry. Network interface. I'm going to put a pound sign in front of these two. I'm going to paste what we've just put out. Your details will be different. I'm going to change this. I know that this server is going to be 21. I'm going to press Control O, press Enter, and then Control X. Then we're going to copy this command to restart the networking. I should come back in a sec. This is quite a relatively new thing where it will actually give you both IP addresses available. If I show you, it actually is latched on to both. So let's go ahead and clear the screen, and let's go and install this single package we need to grab the script. Once we've installed that, we can change directory into our home directory, and let's go and grab the script. So here you'll be sort of met with a few questions. I've left some default options in there if you just want to press enter, enter, enter. But what do you want your RAM to be called? I'm going to call mine Azeroth. What is your server IP address? That's the default one I've just set up, the static IP, so I'm going to leave it as 1.21. It wants to know what username you want to create on the first account. In this instance, I'm just going to use DKI. and DKI for the password. Please enter your own credentials in here that you want. And this is the last few questions is which expansion do you want to start at? Now, the reason I'm doing this is for my wife and I to have a much more slower, relaxed, completionist experience. So we're actually going to start at the vanilla expansion. So in this instance, I would select one. The default is Raffler Lich King as the AzerothCore script was intended. Do you want a fresh server experience? Now, I really like the fresh server experience. Everyone starts at level 1. Everyone's fighting over everything. And I really like it. So I always say yes to this. The default is no, because that's the default settings out the box. How many bots do you want? The default is 500. Let's leave it at 500. And how do you want the bots to behave? So this is when you log in, they log in. Or you can have it where they're always logged in. I tend to find that uses a lot of resources on the server. And this way, when I have them log in when I do, it allows me to run the server 24/7 without using a lot of resources. And then when my wife and I want to play, we jump in and everyone else logs in after us. And we notice no lag when that happens. So we always want them to be here. Now it's going to run through and install a bunch of dependencies. This bit is going to take a few minutes. And as the script is fully automated from the moment we answered the last question, this is now going to go ahead and install everything. In fact, while it's doing this on this screen, I'll run you through what the actual script is doing in the back end. So we run through sort of a bunch of, are you running Debian? Are you running a static IP or DHCP? Then it asks you the questions like, what do you want the server to be called? What's your IP address? Then we go through, and everything is output into a log file, by the way, in case you come across anything that's giving you issues. These are some of the variables that get set when you choose which expansion you want to start at. You know, like when I've set vanilla, I want max level to be 60. I want the Death Knights disabled, and bot counts. We install a couple of bits. We install a couple of bits to get the server going to start before it can then start cloning the repositories that it needs, which in this instance is the player bot branch of AzerothCore, and we also do the mod player bots. I added this in here because to get WSL working, and I think it also there's another containerization that this affects, but when I was trying this on WSL, I couldn't get this working unless I patched it to say Debian specifically from Ubuntu. Then it goes ahead and installs dependencies, which is what it's actually doing now. And once that's done, I've actually run a few catch-alls, so you can run this a few times. If you want to change any of the settings on the questions at the beginning, you can also rerun this over and over again and re-answer the questions. What will happen is when it gets down to compiling the server again, it will go, does it exist? Does the world server binary exist? If it does, you have a choice. Do you want to recompile or not? Once it starts compiling, it will complete the compile. And once the compile's finished, it will then go into the database setup. It will go through, edit the bind address for you. It will disable some logs to stop it. Absolutely, with that many player bots, it really does fill up the logs. We create the users and databases that they're connecting to. We then load the map data, and after we've loaded the map data, we install the default configurations, these ones here. Once the configurations are installed, it will go through and set some variables that we sort of answered the questions for at the beginning. Once that's done, we set up all the aliases. Now, I read through the actual physical documentation, and there's quite a lot of aliases available, or quite a lot of actions available. So I've made, I think there's a bunch of aliases out there, but I've made some specific ones that I think would be helpful. A, to troubleshoot, and B, upgrading and updating the core itself was, in my experience, never super simple. There was no backup of any configs. So once I read that, I then sort of started building what an upgrade process would look like, including backups. And I think the backup's a bit aggressive. I think there's a database I can drop from the backup, but I'm not. I'm just going full backup, recompile, or rebuild, sorry, and then off you go. I also had an alias in for audit configs. Now, what I noticed was, after long stretches of not having the server online and then trying to sort of get it working again, so to speak, a lot of the problem was the fact that the the new versions of the configuration files, the ones that end in .dist, they had newer settings in than basically the version that I was running, and it was throwing all sorts of bunch of errors in the tmux screen. So what I ended up doing was I ended up doing this, making this audit configs, and it will then audit the latest one you've got on compared to your current one. Anything new or additional things you've changed, you can then manually go through and sort of see, oh, actually, I'd like to have those in mine, or actually, I'm just going to move over and then reload your original config with the few settings that you've changed. So these are all the aliases that you can use. I also added a log rotation in just to keep a week's worth, just in case you need them. And once it sort of does all that, it will then go and initialize the world server for the first time. Now, after several times of turning it off too early, it does break database initialization and it causes some issues. So all it does is it looks for the log file, and it just searches for the word world initialized. As soon as the world is initialized, it can carry on doing its whatever else it needs to do. We can close it, we can stop it. In fact, once the server's initialized for the first time, we go ahead and create the default user that we've set above, and then pretty much that's the final steps. We do the final kill of the session, and we set the SQL database to have your realm name and your server IP address, and then it boots back up again. And then you basically go ahead, set your realm list.wtf file to the new server IP, and you can log in immediately. So as you can see on the left side, this server takes probably about 18 minutes, and it's 15% of the way through. Whereas my machine, as I was testing this on WSL yesterday, my machine takes, I think it took about 7 minutes to do. I'll just go and show you the dashboard over here, just to show that it's I gave it all bar 2 basically. So we'll let that crack on. And in fact, while that's just finishing off, I also, being new to this, it was quite interesting playing with the bots, playing with some of the commands that you can run. This bot control add-on is essential, I think, to having a good experience, whether it's solo or whether you've got a group of people. I put all the aliases that are in that you've got available to you. I've put them here, what they do, and I actually went ahead and just a few generic helpful um, GM commands, basically, like teleporting you to locations, and teleporting you to your group to a different location. Now, this is Stormwind, and if you can see the name on the map, try and teleport to it, because it kind of worked for me when Eastvale Logging Camp. I was going from gold tier there, and it just teleported us there. So there's probably a way of looking them up, where the GPS coordinates are. And I found quite a cool one here, which was NPC add. If you're looking, you've got to kill a certain amount of things and they're not spawning quick enough, you just look up the ID by looking up the creature name, and then you just spawn a load. So the full list of player bots commands are there. They're pretty handy, but most of the commands or configurations is done through the specific Unbot add-on. It's really cool. It takes a bit of getting used to understand what you're looking at, but once you get to grips with it, it's a really cool experience. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to speed through it, and I'll come back to you once we're finished. And as you can see, we've now finally hit the end of the compile. And did it tell me how long it takes? 22 minutes. It took that server to do. So, not too bad. And now it's gone through. It's just all automatic. No copying and pasting. No getting it wrong. It just works. And the more sort of I was playing with this, I really want to start playing with some of the modules, but I didn't want to do it. To be fair, it's quite a slow thing when you're trying to test things and do it over and over and over again. So I think I'm going to leave my Unraid server as the one that's the sort of main one that my wife and I progress. And then WSL is just so quick to pull up and down and start fresh. One of the other instances I want to play with is sort of Docker, but that's on the list. That's not being done yet. I just want it as automated and as quick as possible. Less interaction, less mistakes. And we're now sort of at the bit where I said it would be waiting for the world initialize. This one takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do. So I'll speed up through this bit and I'll come back to you when it's done. That's it, that's now initialized. It created the user that we set above, and it then reinitialized or started the server again. To enable aliases immediately, please run source bash rc, so we'll do that now. But let's go and set our, well actually before we go and set our realm list, we can now start using the aliases. So the one you might use the most is wow. As you can see, it's I don't know why it does that. I think it's because I'm set at expansion 1, but it does go through and load everything again. And to get out of this screen, you press Control B and then D, and it would attach. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into editing the WTF file. So it's here. I'm going to edit that, and then we're going to go 192.168.1.21, save it, close that again. And let's load WoW. Let's log in with the default username and password. Log it in, create a new character. Let's log in. Very loud. As you should see, there should be a total level 1. Let's log in.
What can I do for you?
Quests.
See you later.
I don't have a target.
I'm not going to continue on with that. Excellent. Links to this will be down in the video below. I'm going to leave it there for now. Like I said, I'm working on the baby server to go in the motorhome because I don't think I mentioned earlier the reason we're doing that is we're limited on power. So one of the goals is to do things that we want to do whilst not using a lot of power. So even full tilt whilst compiling, that box was using 9 watts, and with 300 bots, I think it uses about six or so watts. So now the goal is to get to clients that will use very minimal power. I'll be doing another video on WSL because I don't think I've seen one done yet, and it's 10 times quicker than this, so much easier. But that's more for single player. It's, to be fair, networking is networking. You could get that working by forwarding ports through your firewall on your local machine through to your WSL, but I won't be going through that. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.